You're listening to WKDW Radio 97.5 and KDWRadio.com, broadcasting from the Bishop West Real Estate Mobile Tower right here in absolutely gorgeous Northport, Florida. We started out the day with a little brisk breeze, and I think it's finally burnt off, and things are looking really nice outside. So keep in mind, keep it slow on the way home, keep it safe. Keep your family from visiting you in the hospital and visiting others. Just slow it down just a tad. I know I always say it, but it comes from the heart. I truly mean it. You don't want to spend the next 3, 4 to 6 months in a hospital trying to figure out what happened. Just slow down and relax. I've got a very special guest in the house today, Mr. RJ Malloy. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Glad to be here, John.
Well, things are happening in our town and surrounding areas. And I first want to start out by saying, what have you been doing with applications from FEMA?
I think I'm getting ready to hit about 250 since the day after the storm. We've been doing FEMA applications, and we've just started doing the SBA low interest loan applications. We've also been helping people find their way through their insurance maze. I'm at the chamber every Wednesday from about 10 in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Not this Wednesday because of the holiday coming up. But all you got to do is call the chamber and set a time, and you can sit down with me and we go over whatever you've got. And if I can't fix it or know how to fix it, I can make a direct referral to somebody in FEMA who can for you. So same thing with the SBA side of it. We've got direct access now to their people.
Give the overview of why you're qualified, like an attorney style overview.
Well, technically, legally, I'm a board certified patient advocate, and that's kind of where my background comes together. Retired attorney, was not a member of the Florida bar, so I don't represent myself as an attorney. But I've had a long history of working through government agencies, and I worked for the UN at one point, so I know the game, the bureaucratic games. And we've been doing this for the last couple of years. During COVID, we helped businesses get close to, I think it was $900,000 in grants from the COVID program. So we've got some experience in how to put this together. And I've also learned over time what my limitations are. There's only so much I can do before I got to send you to somebody else. But whatever it is, I think it can be fixed one way or the other.
And isn't there some beauty of the contacts that one you've made, and then you've been gracious enough to share them with me, and I've had people on the show from FEMA and from SBA, but to build these relationships when you're doing the paperwork style of things, to have that ability to reach out to somebody and kind of get some guidance on how to get people redirected.
I would have to say that the FEMA and the SBA people in this area are phenomenal. They've sat down with me for lengthy periods of time, explaining how things work, explaining the Stafford Act to me, which everything we're doing in this disaster is based on that, how appeals work, how insurance coverage works. I've gotten a lot of good, solid information. And like I say, they're backups now. We can call them and they're willing to help whatever needs to be helped. And I have to say, too, I had to go personally myself to STI and meet with a FEMA rep to get some problems with my original application. And I'll tell you this, the day after the storm, I tried to do the app on my phone. I'm warning everybody, don't use the phone app. It screws up all the time. And then you got to go back and fix things. But anyway, to go back to FEMA, it's real easy. You go to STI, they sign you in. SBA and FEMA are in the same room, and they're there to help. They really extend themselves to help you get whatever it is that you need that they're capable of giving. And I have to say those guys are great. Hello to Mike, who was the guy that sat with me and got me through my stuff. And again, these are great people. They're here to help us. They're here to beat us up. They're here to help us survive and get to the, in fact, they call us survivors. And at first I was a little not happy with that, but I realized that's what we are. We're survivors. We just survived a natural disaster. And FEMA and SBA are here to help us as survivors.
So you said STI. Are you meaning STC?
STC, yes.
All right, that's why I just wanted to make sure I got that corrected. But STC and the Shannon Staub Library both have been very critical as far as a critical location for us to get information. Shannon Staub Library right now is being utilized in several different ways. First off, to do SBA and also FEMA applications and Q&As. The one thing I would say right up front is that if you've been denied by FBA or SBA or FEMA, that's your first denial. Continue to track on. Don't take no for an answer. Keep going back and try to figure out, because a lot of denial letters right now, from what I've been told from FEMA, a lot of those denial letters are because something is wrong on the application. So a lot of people right now are taking that letter as gospel and going, well, I'm not getting any help from FEMA. Well, it's because you didn't do the application correct, and they're not telling you to go in and do the application. They just denied the application you did. So the first thing is make sure your application is right. If you can't figure it out, go sit down with somebody and talk. There's nothing better than getting your case heard and your scenario heard one-on-one, so you have the correct guidance. And I'm sure that RJ will back me up on that.
And without a doubt, I can get information into the system and I can help you to answer the questions correctly. But when you go sit down with the FEMA rep, they have direct access into the database. They can fix it right then and there for you. And the other side of it too is, remember that FEMA has a very robust appeal process. It's really easy. It's a simple letter. You fill it out, and the next thing you know, they want to work with you to figure out why you got denied and how you can fix being denied. And from what I'm hearing, I sat down on Wednesday with Manuel Portella. He's a governmental affairs specialist for FEMA, and he is a wealth of information. And he walked me through a whole bunch of things that I didn't know. These are the people that can help you get through. But he did talk to me about that first letter is not the end of the game. There's numerous appeals that can be filed. There's numerous corrections that can be made. And hopefully we get to the place after all that stuff is done that you got what you need as a survivor.
And I've heard the good, the bad, and the ugly. As far as stories go. And the beauty with that is that the first correction with the ugly is it's not always as ugly as you think it is. If you never have been to sit down with somebody to try to figure out what's wrong from your first denial, just accept the fact that you're not going to receive any help. Now, if you do take that approach, understand that you're the one letting yourself down. The system is designed to do exactly what it's doing. If the application is not correct, that's a denial. If you correct it and you get to move forward, it's because you went and sat down and figured it out, got it corrected, and now the wheels are turning again. If you've done your SBA, go ahead. I see you wanted to say something.
I was going to say that a lot of the initial denials are simply based on a software analysis. It's not a person who sat down and went through it. And that's basically how this massive system has to work. You fill out an application, you check all the boxes, you answer all the questions, and it goes through a software analysis. You may get not have clicked the right box like I did. I didn't click the right box, or I forgot to click a box, or I couldn't see the box on the phone app. And so you get initial denial, but that doesn't mean you don't qualify. And so you just take the next step, go in, sit down where they can get into the database for you, and they can ask you the questions again, and you can get them right. is
Good.
you get a host of information. Like, I didn't know that FEMA doesn't cover lanais.
Or screen.
They cover the permanent structure, but not the lanai.
And not
So
the screening either.
right, and so if you're going in with those are your damages, you're not going to get anywhere.
Right.
On the other hand, FEMA has a lot of money to cover personal property that's been damaged. Now, yeah, you're going to have to document it, but it's there. So there's money on the side for the structure, and there's money on the side for your personal property. And some people may have had minimal damage to the house, but because of water, they lost a lot of property. Or the lanai blew away and things that were on the lanai that are personal property got destroyed. So there's always possibilities in what you're doing. The hardest part is waiting, waiting for the adjuster to come out, talking to the adjuster, that sort of thing. But again, all of those things, say they offered you X amount of money and it's not anywhere near the max, you can go back and appeal that. You got to have the basis for it. You don't just appeal to appeal, but you can go back and say, well, no, the roof is going to cost twice that amount of money, so I should be able to get the maximum. So you got to get into the system. Remember, we're talking thousands of people having to go through this system in a very short period of time. And we've seen problems with FEMA. You may have gotten a letter that said you were going to get $700, right? And you're still waiting for the $700. I found out that was a glitch in the system. A whole bunch of people got it by accident. So, and they had to pull them back. So, it's a system. It has its failure. It has its positives. You just have to work through it and be patient. One of the things that I've learned, John, is I've stopped trying to set a deadline when I want something done. I need my roof redone. I need my kitchen redone. I want them all done by Christmas. No, that's not going to happen. And as long as you keep yourself on that type of timeline, you're going to drive you crazy. You have to get to the place where, yes, I'm going to get a new roof. Yes, I'm going to get a new kitchen. It ain't going to happen tomorrow. And I can guarantee you that another month from now, costs are going to come down. And so you'll be able to cover more with your insurance and your FEMA settlement and things like that. So don't try to push the timeline on it either.
And, as far as the insurance goes, I've heard the good, bad, and the ugly there too. And I've heard a lot about a public, oh my gosh, you know what I'm going to say, I'm sure. The
public adjuster, public assistant.
Yes, public adjuster.
Right.
Your thoughts on that?
Let me talk about how FEMA covers insurance, and I can move directly into that. FEMA doesn't care what your deductible is. That's between you and your insurance company. FEMA is not going to pay for what your insurance company is going to pay you for, because that would be a double dip. Now, once you've got the final settlement from FEMA, the final number, you can go back and ask for more. From the insurance company. You can then go back to FEMA and say, I've got X amount of dollars that I haven't been able to cover because my insurance comes up short. FEMA has funds for that. Here's the problem with the private adjuster. If you have regular insurance, yes, get a private adjuster. Because we are seeing huge differences between what the insurance company offers and what the private adjuster is able to work out, because they're working for you and they're able to get appraisals and everything else done that your insurance company's not willing to do. So as far as FEMA is concerned, I don't know how well a private adjuster is going to do for you, because they're going to take a percentage. And that little bit that's left over on the other side of what the insurance didn't pay is not a huge amount of money. The maximum is $30,000, $38,000. Correct me if I'm wrong, John, but it's in that range. And if they're going to take 20% of that, it may not be enough to cover what you have to cover, the difference between your insurance and what FEMA is willing to give you afterwards. Now, the way that that's done is you file an appeal. So you've been not denied because you have insurance. You go get your final insurance settlement. That letter becomes key now to you filing your appeal. So I have an appraisal saying I need to do this amount of work to get this done. The insurance company only gave me this much. How much of that is FEMA willing to give me so that I can survive? And that's how that game is played. So just because you had insurance doesn't mean you're not entitled to FEMA. You just have to get through the insurance side of the money first before you get to the government side of the money.
Twofold on that. But you also have SBA, and you can utilize all three components: insurance, FEMA, and SBA, to repair your home. Correct?
Let's talk about SBA. That is a relatively easy application to get through, and Sandra Lawson, I believe, is her name, right? She's from the SBA. We sat down and talked to her for a while, and she basically said they want to loan you the money, and it's a low interest rate. I think the nonprofits was 1.8, 1.7 something, and it's only a point more for a private individual and for businesses. So where are you going to buy money for that rate? And it's a 30-year loan. So your costs for whatever it costs you for this year, you get to spread that out over 30 years through the SBA. And they are motivated, absolutely motivated to get you into the program and get you a loan. And I think that's another way to look at it. You don't need to be pulling it out of your personal savings, especially if you're retired. But if you can work out a loan that's a low interest loan and that you can handle the payments over 30 years, I don't see why you wouldn't do it.
And all of those programs, they can be utilized by just about everyone in our city and surrounding areas. There are some qualifications that go into that, and you may have to provide some information, but the whole key is if you never go talk to anyone, you're never going to get anywhere. And I've said this over and over again on the show, and I want to see where your thought is. But if there's 10 grand out there to get that will help you, and all you have to do is listen to somebody tell you no, and then correct it, tell you no, correct it, and then you get your funding. That kind of describes a lot of people's efforts through FEMA.
I think what Manuel was saying is that, so the reason FEMA and SBA are right in the room together is when you can't get through FEMA, they take you over to the SBA. They literally walk you across the room and introduce you to somebody from the SBA.
Correct.
So it's right there for you. And if you have a problem with the SBA, you can bounce back to another FEMA program. So there are numerous ways to be made whole, without destroying your life savings. And also to get your house back and your property back into the condition that it needs to be. Now, we know that FEMA won't cover a lanai, but you can borrow money from the SBA over 30 years to fix that lanai.
Yes, you can, at a very low interest rate too.
You're not going to get it from a bank. The banks don't have interest rates that low.
Nope.
And it's just a good way if you can manage the payments, and the payments are going to be small. I mean, we're not talking about you borrowing $1 million here. You might be borrowing $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 to get your lanai done, and you spread that out over 30 years. It's a very small payment, as opposed to you going and raiding your retirement account to come up, take 15 grand out of your retirement account, which might be making you 5 or 6%.
Well, and some of the beauty in that stuff, though, is that you're not repairing the old one to keep it. You're upgrading, and you're bringing it up to code. And go ahead.
I was going to say it, and that's an important point, John, because the SBA and FEMA, but mainly the SBA, they have money for mitigation, it's called, and that's to upgrade your facility so that the next time there's a problem, you got better doors, better windows, whatever it's going to be that works in that mitigation world with them. And that program, I'm not real familiar with it yet. I'm working on it, on studying it now, but there is money to make the house better, less likely to be flooded the next time. Like here at the station, one of the things we're going to look at is hermetically sealed doors. They close and the water won't come in.
And that matters.
Oh yeah, we know what happened to us when the water did come in, and anything that
Correct.
was on the floor ain't on the floor anymore. It's in the garbage can.
Well, and that's part of the upgrades that people are facing right now, is that if they're in a flood zone, things are really being talked about a lot differently today than say a year ago in a flood zone. Part of that is we actually flooded now, and there's been a lot of talk about a 50% rule. Can you kind of highlight what a 50% rule is in our area and surrounding areas?
Well, I'll make it brief, and then John, you can fill in the details because you've been studying it more than me. But basically, what the 50% rule says, if your property sustains damage in excess of 50% of the value, and we're going to talk about the value in a minute, about 50% of the value of the home, then you have to rebuild to FEMA flood codes and building codes. And that could get incredibly expensive if you were in a zone that's going to require lifting the house up or getting special doors or whatever that's going to look like. And I'm not the expert on that. I just know from talking to a number of contractors that could actually end your ability to own your $150,000 to $200,000 home because you're not going to be able to build it back. It'll be too expensive. And it won't add to the value of the home. It's only going to add to your ability to get insurance and meet the building codes. So as far as the value is concerned, here's the debate that we're hearing. Is it market value? Is it appraised value? Or is it assessed value?
Well, and truthfully, I've talked to several people about it, and the assessed value is the first phase of what they sent out in the letters. The assessed value of a home is one portion of it. The second side of it is appraised value. You can hire an appraiser to come out. And here's the caveat to this whole thing. When we use appraisers in the real estate market, we don't use our best friends down the road. They're in a pool. You can call an appraiser and have a professional appraisal done to turn into your insurance company. It's independent, and FEMA will look at that with this 50% ruling, and it will hopefully, in most cases, because just value, if you look up just value of your home on the tax records, it is half usually of what your house is actually worth. So
It used to be called taxable value or
right,
assessed value. And now
correct.
they've given it a nice name called just value, but it
Just
hasn't changed. It's the same deal.
But the beauty in having an appraisal done on your home, especially if you know your home is worth more money, is that 50% then climbs. So let's just use round numbers, and we'll take a house that has a just value of 200,000. Well, at the 50% rule, you only have 100,000 to work with. If it goes 100,001, you're over the 50% rule. Now, take that same house. If the value is truly 320,000, now you're at 160,000 as far as your 50% rule. Well, that may keep you from having to completely rebuild your home. If you're in a flood zone, truthfully, any flood zone, so that if you pay flood insurance now, you're in that flood zone. Even if your payment is $300 and you've been built out and you've been built up to say 11 feet, they can still come in because you're not truly out of flood zone at that level. They can still come in and raise you up or have you raise yourself up, which means your slab is now gone and your home is gone, because 13 feet is where you want to be, 13 feet and above. And I got to tell you, some of these houses that I saw, even at 13 feet, they'd have still been flooded. There was that much water. But the standard of what they're trying to set is they're trying to get people to build out of the flood zone and build up higher. And really, they were going the plane of the street, um, in different sections of our city and surrounding cities. The big thing that you want to keep in mind is that if your home is more than 50% damaged, I would get an appraisal done so you can pop that number up. You can possibly get your home. And I think this strategically, when you just talked about how to manage the funds, strategically, you have to keep in mind that you don't want to overspend past that 50% threshold. So you better find people that'll get the job done at a much lesser value. And that delay that you mentioned a few minutes ago, on where you were talking about the prices coming down over the next few months, that may be advantageous to some.
Yeah, and I want to make a warning about market value, because that's been brought up in some of these documents.
It has.
Right now, John, market value for a damaged home is down considerably, right?
Yes, it is.
So you want to probably avoid market value. And what we did read in some of the literature is that the building department will accept a professional appraisal versus what their number is. I would never go with their number. And an appraiser is going to cost what, John? We're at about $500?
Yeah, it's around the $500 mark.
So for $500, you could save yourself $100,000. So
Correct.
you know, don't cheap yourself on this one. If you think you've got damages, and you know, especially if you've lost a roof and you've had a lot of damage inside the house, the repair costs for those, the contracted costs, could easily exceed 50%, especially in the next couple of months.
And those letters are,
if you go by appraised value.
Yep.
If you go by appraised value.
Those letters are being sent out by the city right now. A lot of people have been getting those letters. The big thing I will say about that is you need to go sit down with the city of Northport, find out exactly what the plan of attack is. Those you truthfully can't just throw your hands in the air. You have got to go in and talk to them and find out exactly what it is they're trying to get you to do. And
well, you're going to have to get building permits anyway for roof and structure and things like fences and all the rest of that
correct.
stuff. So you might as well go in, because you got to do it anyway and find out what the situation is.
And once again, that flood zone that we were talking about, the only flood, or the only area that is truly not in a flood zone, is one that's marked X. So if you're in an X flood zone, and for people who have a loan on their home, it's very simple. If you're paying flood insurance, you're in a flood zone. Okay. Those of you who are not in a flood zone, who have a mortgage, you're finding out now that you could have had flood insurance for a much lesser rate per year than what we're seeing happen now with all these repairs, because flood insurance is not homeowners insurance. Homeowners is one thing and flood insurance is another. And I will tell you, this 24 years I've been here in Northport, never envisioned what I saw in our area. Never envisioned that at all. Some spots I would have thought we would have held water. We've had trouble in the past, but I don't know. I don't know anybody. I remember I think it was Chuck English who was talking about 92. Well, I'm going to tell you, in 1992, there weren't enough houses here to think about on the scale that we're talking today. We are so much more populated in this area. I don't know, as a realtor, I don't know that I'll ever sell another house to anyone without pulling a flood policy and just making sure they're aware that this policy is here and you can have it and it's cheap. I don't know that I would ever do that. And I'm sure that insurance companies, at least the reliable ones that are out there, I know they're talking to people about all these other types of insurance policies, the writers that are out there for different things that are happening or being done to their home. Most people don't want to spend that money. I have a feeling after this, there are going to be a lot of people reassess that fee annually and divide what they're paying now down and wish they would have had it. Because a lot of what we're talking about now through the SBA, it's truthfully about rebuilding your home because you didn't have the right coverage first off, and you have to find a way to rebuild so you can get that loan. The second side of that is anytime you rebuild, and with this 50%, you've got to bring it up to code, including where it's at on valuation, or elevation. So if you're not built out of a flood zone, you're going to have to come into code. If your home is not up to code and you're 50% more damaged, you're going to have to bring that home up to code. That's where the differences are coming in with the insurance companies too, because you've got insurance companies that are going to battle you one way, then you got FEMA that's going to talk to you a different way, and now you've got SBA that's looking to help you, but anytime you go to them, it's an upgrade. It cannot be to the same standard it was when the damage occurred. And with that, I'm going to go back to RJ just for a second, and I want to know what your thought is with the hands-on that you've had with SBA and FEMA. What's the difference in your field with people that are struggling with the insurance side right now?
Well, we've got it on both sides. Like you say, a reliable insurance company, they come in quick, they do a thorough evaluation, and they give you numbers, and they ask you to submit quotations, for roof and things like that. And generally speaking, other than the debate over the deductible side of it, which is about 2% of whatever your insurance cap is, I think that, yes, that's not a problem. However, there's a number of insurance carriers that we won't name that are absolutely impossible to work with. And they're out there to lowball everything. And then you accept that check, and then you go call a roofer, and what you just accepted that you thought was going to get your whole house done doesn't even cover the roof. So you got to be careful with that. I've been telling people, if I were you, I would never accept the first amount that the insurance company offers me, whether they're a good insurance company or a bad insurance company. Because every time what a private adjuster does is they contest whatever that is, and they end up getting you more money. You can do that yourself without having to get rid of the 20% that you'd have to pay to a private adjuster. But in some cases, a private adjuster is the only way to go because they are going to protect you, and it's going to be worthwhile if it's a big claim.
Well, and I'm going to ask you this question because I'm catching something that maybe I didn't quite get. The insurance side of it, are you saying that if you accept that first check, you're kind of done at that point?
It depends on your policy. I've had to look at a number of policies with people, and in some cases, the insurance company will tell you up front, this is just to get you started. And if you got more claims, come back with them. And some policies say at the point that you accept the offer, you've given up on any other claim. So you need to know what's in your policy. And neither John or I are qualified to tell you definitively what that is. You should be talking to your agent about that. But you can generally find it in the policy as to whether accepting payment is the limit that the insurance company has to deal with. Some insurance companies, like I said, they tell you, go ahead, cash the check. It's fine. If there's more, we'll come back and discuss it. So, And some are like, nope, you cash the check. That's it. You're in.
Well, and I think one of the biggest things that people should hear through this show, and anytime they talk, even to their neighbors, first off, no misinformation.
Yes, don't get your information from Twitter.
Yeah. Second off, uh, if you've been denied the first time, go sit down with them and figure it out. If you're truly denied and you need another financial outsource, then go to SBA. If you go to STC at Toledo Blade and Price at the Shannon Staub Library and you sit down with FEMA and you're not going to qualify through FEMA, they will, like you said, walk you over and they will have that conversation to you about working through the SBA. I know we keep saying SBA, Small Business Administration. It doesn't matter right now. In this realm, they're here to help people that have been affected by the hurricane, and these loans are designed exactly for that. So take out who the initials stand for and just put in there, it's a low interest loan that you can upgrade and fix your property and pay it over 30 years. That's value all by itself. And really, if you've been turned down by FEMA, figure it out and then go to SBA and figure out if you qualify there for their loan structure. And like you said, and we've been told on this show before from SBA, they're truly here to help, and they even offer to help you write the letters to try to get things corrected.
You're right, John. They are truly here to help us. And again, they see us as survivors. And I think that's an important point. We're not just people looking for a handout or an entitlement. We have survived a great natural disaster. And these people are here to help make us whole within the limits of what they have to do. And if you ever bother to look up the Stafford Act, you'll be able to see what the limits are of what they're able to do. But they really, truly want to help. They want to help you find a way. They're not here to deny you. The only denials come because they're statutory. This is the way it works. You have to qualify, blah, blah, blah. If you don't work here, we're going to move you here. And so the SBA has money for private individuals to help you with your house. It's called disaster recovery funds. And they've got also a lot of money available to churches and nonprofits. So if you're a church or a nonprofit that's had a problem, there are SBA low interest loans, 1.7, 1.8%, somewhere in that realm, to help you rebuild your church or your school or your nonprofit organization, whatever you may need. So that's out there also. Take advantage of it. Because what we're seeing right now, John, radio station survives on donations. Well, donations have pretty much dried up because people have to spend money on other things. But the SBA money hasn't dried up.
And that's, I don't know that we're fully looking at the complete picture that we're battling right now. We were already battling financial crises in the nation with gas, oil, heating oil, electric bills going up, jobs, different things like that. Interest rates, as far as the mortgage loans, interest rates going up. I heard that. And, when you factor all these things in and then you sit back and you tell someone, hey, go look at this loan process, keep in mind that I call it free money at 2%. Because truthfully, there's nowhere you can go and get a loan at 2% right now on anything. And several years back now, we were at 3.5% and to buy the home. And truthfully, people thought it was kind of free money back then at 3.5%. The reality of the market is that we should really be settling in at that 6% range. If we could just stabilize the interest rate market, the houses would all kind of stabilize and at 6%. we have these fluctuations all over the place. But a 30-year fixed rate at 2%, fixed rate at 2% is not going to cost you that much over time.
It's
Even
also
if,
to protect you from those market fluctuations,
yes, it is. Yes, it
because
is.
we know we're going to pop back up again. It's going to go down for a little bit, then it's got to go back up because inflation has not been tamed. So the Fed is going to add another 0.75% to the game, which translates sometimes into 2 points otherwise. So
Here's the thing. Everything you've heard on this show should be encouraging. Vote Pete Emmerich. There you go.
with my collection of Pete Emmerich koozies.
Nice. All these things being said, shouldn't people listen to what we're saying, but hear these words over and over and over again? Go sit down and figure your own plan of attack out. Do not, do not talk to your neighbors because they didn't have success. Everyone is different. Everyone's scenario is different. And if you're just willing to take no the first time through, that would be your loss. Is that true, RJ?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Don't take no for an answer. I mean, obviously, there's only so far you can push it, but you don't know how far that is until you push it.
Right.
So I think it's important that you stand up for what you believe you're entitled to, and watch out for the misinformation. Of the many applications that I looked at, I had somebody come in and tell me, "Well, I heard that FEMA is going to give me up to $9,000 to get rid of my yard debris." No, they're not. But he said, but I just went out and contracted and I owe the guy $9,000. It's like, I can't help you. Who told you that? Well, my neighbor told me that. Stop that. Go to the source. They'll tell you. And it's real easy. The FEMA at STI is not STC is not busy. They're not busy. You don't have to wait for hours to get in like we had to do the first week of the storm. You can get in there and get out within 45 minutes to an hour at the most, depending on how much yakking you need to do with the adjuster. Go find out what the real world answers are. Calling is still difficult because you're going to have to wait a long time. And if you decide you're going to call, at some point they're going to give you the option of a callback. Take it, because they'll get back to you quicker than if you stay online and wait. So, and they're open until 11 o'clock every night. You call it 9 o'clock and you'll have a much less wait time, but it's still better. It is still better to go in physically. I went in with some documents and they got scanned and entered right away. So take advantage of what's here in the area and don't go by what you hear on Twitter or at the clubhouse or whatever, because a lot of it is bullpucky.
With everything going on in our city right now, and I'm kind of going to go off task just a tad. What do you think of the recovery that the city has put together? One of the things that I've heard people talk about are these big trucks going around. These big trucks were contracted prior to this storm because they planned for a hurricane, because we've had situations in the past. But the planning of this whole thing, how the city has really fixed 4 bridges and got them up and running, managed the trash pickups, got the water back up and running, even though it was majorly compromised. What's your thought on that whole scenario?
I'm kind of proud of our city. They really did a great job. This was a horrendous disaster. I mean, we had roadways washed away. We had places that never have flooded before float away. We had houses blown away. We had power lines, trees, all kinds of things down. The city did the best that they could possibly do, and they're doing, I think, a great job. Let me add to that. If you're in the county and you have debris on the street, and you think that waste management is going to pick it up, they're not. Contractors are picking it up. Waste management was not contracted to pick up the stuff on the street. They're only contracted to pick up your cart. Now, what waste manager is going to tell you is, well, you know, we can bring a dumpster in for you for $480 or whatever the heck it is, and you can fill it up and we'll take it out. You don't need to do that. You just need to be patient because there's a limited number of these big trucks around, but they're doing a hell of a job picking stuff up. I forget many 100 tons they've already moved out of the area. So just be patient. They'll be there to pick it up. What your job is to make sure the pile's relatively compact. It's not spread all over the place. And if you can separate the metal out, if the scrappers haven't already come to your neighborhood and taken all the metal with them, set the metal to one side and all the other trash to the other, and these things will come and they'll pick it up, and they'll pick up all the vegetation and branches and stumps and all the rest of that. But waste management in the county is not picking it up, so don't call them.
And do not combine any trash with your vegetation debris.
Yes, there's a separate truck that picks that up, right?
Yes, and they will not, I will promise you, they will not do any of that pickup if there's any trash involved in that. Contaminant free is really what they're looking for. And I stress that because I've had people who have said the city's not picking up my debris. And, you know, I drive over and I look at their debris and I'm like, well, why did you put your trash inside your debris? Now you've got to deconstruct what you had built. All right. They will not. I'm not going to say they do not. They will not take your vegetation debris if there's trash in it. Period.
And it makes sense because they're taking it to the chipper and turning it into mulch that we're going to use later in the city.
Right.
So, correct. You know, aluminum cans and garbage and stuff like that, you can't have that in mulch. So don't do that. It's not that hard. And if you've made that mistake, then get out there and do it. What'll happen both with the contractors and the city is you're going to get a notice about it. They're not just going to disappear and not come back, but you will get some red flag or some notice put on the pile telling you why they don't pick it up.
Correct. And that all those things matter. Please get the word out to the neighbors that you have that are really, if they're complaining about it, there is a reason why they're not picking it up. Just don't think that it's just you. It is just you when it comes to trash combined with your yard waste. So keep that in mind. Get it taken care of. If you haven't gotten a notice, you will. If you are listening right now and you haven't gotten a notice and you can't figure out why, or you've redone your trash, just give a phone call to the city waste management and let them know that you've got a pile out there, and they'll make sure it's on the pickup schedule. That's the biggest thing. That is not done by our normal waste management team. In a lot of cases, that's done by these big trucks that come by that most people have seen out with the big grabbers, and they'll be able to grab it and load and go. They're doing a phenomenal job. Those trucks are working 12, 16-hour days, I believe. But they've moved, I think the last count was or 7 or 8 of the, oh my gosh, Epcot World, 7 or 8 of those completely filled, which is insane. When you start thinking about how big that is, there's a lot of debris that's being moved. and we're going to be using that later as mulch in different areas. So keep that in mind. I'm going to post up here the Northport City Building Department. That is exactly who you want to follow up with. If you're in a flood zone and you've received a letter, make sure that you go over and you talk to them. It is very important that you do it as soon as possible. Oops, wrong one. But make sure that you're able to get in and talk to them. Maybe call and set an appointment up so that they know you're coming. So you have something set with them. Please, please, please don't get scared of the letter. Address the issues. Go at it. It's not going to go away. I can tell you it's not going to go away. So whether you're upset over the letter or not, I get it. Because if I would have gotten a letter, I guess I'd have been upset too. But you have to know what you're battling. You need to go in and sit down with them. They will be very specific with you because they were required by FEMA to send this letter out. It was not done by the city of Northport solely. Keep that in mind. Anything you want to add to that, RJ?
Yeah, if you have any serious issues that you want to talk about, I'm at the Northport Area Chamber of Commerce every Wednesday, not this coming Wednesday because of the holiday, but after that, just call the chamber, make an appointment, and I'd be happy to sit down and guide you with what I know and send you to the right people. And the other side of it too is I really do encourage you, go in and see FEMA and take it from there.
Absolutely. And the biggest thing, STC, you've got to go to STC. You've got to sit down. You've got to hear what they have to say. You've got to make your own adjustment on what's happening, and keep that in mind as this whole thing is taking place. If you're not able to at least get in there, make the phone calls, but I will promise you, if you go to STC, it's less than a 30-minute wait, and you're probably going to get in and out of there faster than you've ever thought that you would get in and out. It's very pleasant. You're in AC. You're not sitting outside waiting in line. You're waiting in a very nice facility, restrooms, water fountains. Just relax, go in there, get educated. The biggest thing I can say is if you can't handle this situation, take someone with you. If you think that it's going to be too much stress, that you're not going to retain some information, take someone with you. Let a calmer voice be part of the process. Okay. I know that myself, just like RJ, I've taken many people there myself. I've sat down at the table. I've listened. I then talked about it to them afterwards. It's not difficult. Sometimes it's just an emotional process that people are going through right now. And I've been blessed, and I'm going to throw it back at RJ here in a second for last minute, but I was not affected with damage. I've been affected by others' damage. So my handling of things are a little different. Your place, you had a lot of damage at home, and you spent time at the bridge doing applications, and now you're still doing applications, and you're dealing with all these things. 2 locations, your home and the station, both in disarray at the same time. Go ahead.
Well, I have to say, as far as the station is concerned, our incredible volunteers told me to stay home. We'll take care of it. And they did. Common Grounds is open again. The radio station is back on the air. The tower is still in the crank down mode. That's going to go back up early in the week, back to full height. And we're only running the transmitter in test mode. But we will be 100% back on the air sometime next week. And again, that's because of people who came up with money and said, here, let us help you. And people who came are volunteers who said, we can fix it. We can do it. And they did. And so we're back up. As far as my home is concerned, I'm going back to what I told you about time. Yes, eventually I will have a new kitchen. Eventually I'll have new ceilings. I just don't know when. And I'm not going to worry about the time. And I think that's the attitude. And I'll give you the Rebecca McKee's rule of how to clean up. You pick a 10-foot by 10-foot square and you clean up everything in that 10-foot square. Don't look anywhere else but that square. When you're done with that, move on to the next 10-foot square. I've tried it. It works great. You don't get depressed and you get a lot more done than if you're bouncing or all over the place doing things.
This is John Rawlings with WKDW Radio 97.5 FM saying thank you. Have a good night. RJ, thanks for coming on.
It was a pleasure.
My guest on Monday will be none other than our new commissioner, and it's not Pete Emmerich. Who do you think it is?
Phil.
Phil's coming on. So we'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great weekend. Be safe out there. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.